few minutes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Liz Costello. I'm one of the priests here, and it's a joy to be able to introduce our guest preacher and speaker today, the Very Reverend Tracey Lind. She is a newly retired Episcopal priest and city planner whose ministry has included work for social and environmental justice, interfaith relations, sustainable urban development, arts, culture, and progressive theology. For 17 years, she served as dean at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral, a thriving and diverse urban congregation in Cleveland. From 1989 to 2000, she served as rector of St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Paterson, New Jersey. She is an author. She is or at some point wrote Interrupted by God, Glimpses from the Edge. On November 8th, 2016, Election Day, she was diagnosed with early stages of frontotemporal degeneration. Her ministry now extends to include her spiritual insights and lessons she has gained from a life complicated by dementia. Thank you so much for your sermon this morning, Tracey, and we welcome you here.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and you all are in really good hands with Liz being here during your interim time, and so I'll say it now. Make sure you thank her once you call a new rector, because the clergy that serve during these transitions are doing very, very hard work, and it's not something that they sign up for when they're called to a parish, right? So thank you. Well, yeah, you heard Election Day 2016 was complicated for a lot of people, and it was really complicated for me when I got diagnosed. And at first I tried to ignore it, and I kept making light of the increasingly obvious signs and symptoms. And when others began to notice that something was off, then I tried to deny it. And I thought, well, this is just normal aging. And having lost my mom to Alzheimer's, I thought maybe I was one of the worried well. But there was this day in the spring of 2016, I'd been having a hard time. I had been struggling with faces and names and my calendar and my energy and being able to effectively run a meeting and organize an agenda and all this stuff, you know, that I just took for granted. I was also tripping and falling a lot, and I was sleeping a lot, and I kept finding myself staring off into space. And one day, I had a 20-minute conversation with somebody on the street out in front of the cathedral, and it was somebody that clearly I should have known. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out who I was talking with. And 20 minutes is a long time to talk to somebody and not know who you're talking to. And he was asking questions, and I'm like sitting there thinking, you know, who is this? You know, I later kind of put together and realized I was talking to our real estate consultant who was working on a major project for us. And in that moment in time, I had not a clue who he was. And later that week, I was standing in a restroom, actually a restroom in the Cathedral, and I looked in the mirror and I did not recognize my own face. I looked around thinking, well, who's that attractive woman? And then I looked around the room and I realized there was nobody else in the room but me. And I thought, oh man, there really is something wrong with me. These are not any longer postmenopausal memory loss moments. This is not worried well. This is not normal aging. So I called and I got an appointment with the head of neurology at the Cleveland Clinic. And after 6 months of pretty extensive testing, I was diagnosed with FTD. How many of you have ever heard of FTD? Good, some of you have. That makes me really happy, actually. FTD stands for Frontotemporal Degeneration. It's a less common form of dementia than Alzheimer's, but it is the most common form of dementia that affects those of us under the age of 65, which makes it really complicated and really devastating because it affects people in the middle of their lives. Sometimes when they're raising children still at home or caring for older parents in the middle of our careers. FTD is a shrinkage of the frontotemporal lobes of the brain, and it causes a gradual but progressive decline in language, executive function, that's the ability to make decisions and to organize your life, communications, and sometimes, oftentimes, behavior. On the other hand, it generally leaves your long-term memory intact. The life expectancy for somebody with FTD after diagnosis is anywhere from 2 to 20 years, with an average of about 7 to 10 years. I've always been an outlier, so I'm hoping to be an outlier on the long side of 20. There is no known cause for FTD, there's no cure for FTD, but there's an organization, and it's called the Association for Frontotemporal Degeneration, AFTD, and it happens to be located right here in King of Prussia, and it's working very hard to identify what we call biomarkers, what are the brain indicators, and to find cures and treatment, and to advocate for compassionate care for those of us living with the disease. And the president, the founding president, happens to be here today. She's sitting right there, Susan Dickinson, who is the president of AFTD. She's just returned from an international conference in Australia, and 20% of all of my speaking honorariums go to support the work of this amazing, amazing organization, for which I am very grateful. So Susan, thank you for being here, and thank you for the work that you do. For the past year, Emily, my spouse, and I have been traveling around the globe teaching about dementia from the inside out. And in doing so, I've been getting to know and really learning to love that person I saw in the restroom mirror, the person whose face I didn't recognize. I was a pastor, much like Merrick, who could see you twice a year, Christmas and Easter, and not only recognize your face and remember your name, but I would remember to ask after your job search or inquire about your mother's health. And now it's very hard for me to recognize faces. And I probably won't recall your name unless I've known it for a very long time or I've been hearing it really consistently. Susan came up to receive communion, and I did not recognize her at first, and I had to sort of say, okay, this is somebody I should know. And then it came was an executive. I led a large cathedral, and now I find it difficult to plan and organize and manage projects, especially managing other people, because it's hard for me to sequence things. I'm a writer and a public speaker who often can't find words, and I seem to have a daily quota for conversation. I just said to Susan and the folks sitting at this table, when I leave you all today, I probably won't talk much for the next couple of days. And when I do, I'm making up language a lot. One of the things I have learned how to do is, with the help of a speech therapist, I've learned how to do workarounds for when I can't find a word. And when I do a descriptive workaround, and sometimes by the time I do the descriptive workaround, it then helps me to buy a little time to find the word. I'm a photographer, and I can't remember the settings on my camera. So thank God for iPhones, you know, I use that now. I'm a golfer who cannot for the life of me remember where my ball just landed. If I take my eye off it for 1 minute, it's completely gone, because I don't have a lot of short-term memory. I struggle with issues of balance, so I'm a cyclist who has to be careful about not falling off my bike, and I'm a hiker who now walks with a tentative stride. It's hard for me to read because I can't remember what I just read, so it's hard to keep track of my reading. I am a very seasoned traveler who gets really anxious in airports and hotels. Emily will tell you I fall apart in TSA lines on a regular basis, which is not a good thing to do. I've been an urban dweller for most of my adult life, and I get nervous now on buses and subways and busy sidewalks. I'm probably the biggest extrovert you will ever meet, maybe next to Merrick, actually, who now gets overwhelmed walking into a room. And some of you will say, gosh, I suffer from some of all of that. And I think there is a part of aging where some of those things happen to us. But, you know, you start adding it all up, and you realize that early onset dementia starts to rob one, at least me, of the strength that I've valued for so many years. I've watched many people hide dementia. How many of you know somebody with dementia? Okay, put your hands down. How many of you know somebody that you're pretty sure has dementia who would never admit it? Put your hands up. You know, we hide it as if it's something to be ashamed of or embarrassed about, as if it's a weakness or a punishment, maybe even a sin. For instance, if only she had eaten less red meat and more dark green leafy vegetables, right? If only he had done the New York Times crossword puzzle every day, especially Saturdays. You know? If only she had practiced her yoga or her meditation regularly for the past 10 years. You know, the list goes on and on and on of all of the if-onlys. I liken dementia to cancer in the 1960s or AIDS in the 1980s, of a thus far incurable disease that we don't fully understand, loaded with a lot of blaming the victim, so to speak, and spoken of in hushed voices, as if we don't say it out loud, A, it's not real, and B, our life won't fall apart. Well, I refuse to live with dementia on those terms. If you take away nothing else of what I say today, I hope you will take this away. I believe that denial is not useful, that honesty is important, that an early diagnosis can result in a longer and higher quality of life, and transparency makes life easier for everybody involved, especially those closest to you. An early diagnosis really did allow me to exit work gracefully on my own terms. I stepped down before I embarrassed myself or Trinity Cathedral. An early diagnosis allowed us to put our legal and financial affairs in order and to make plans for the future, trying to imagine how together we might experience the fullness of time I spoke of, and the fullness of life as my dementia progresses. An early diagnosis has given me an opportunity to do what I love to do and to spend time with those whom I love. Honesty has afforded me the time and the space and the incentive and the willpower, coupled with an early diagnosis, which has afforded me some significant cognitive reserve. I'm still functioning, as well as physical strength, so that I can be intentional about self-care, exploring ways to manage and perhaps slow, and who knows, maybe even reverse the progress of my disease. And as a theologian, being transparent has encouraged me to make sense of dementia, to consider its spirituality, to give it meaning and purpose, and to share my learnings with others. Dementia is a growing and expensive global health issue. And while, as I said, Alzheimer's is the most common form, dementia is really an umbrella, a broad category of symptoms caused by various forms of brain damage and brain disease. And just like there are many varieties of cancer, there are also lots of different kinds of dementia. Because the specific type of dementia can only be determined for absolute certain through an autopsy, and they cut open your brain at the end, people like me will tell you that at the time of diagnosis, we all hear this hard word from our doctor, and the word is probably. You have dementia. You have these signs and symptoms. And it's probably Alzheimer's or Lewy body or vascular or some other form such as FTD. In fact, normally the way they diagnose the disease is they back into it. They eliminate everything else, like a vitamin B deficiency or syphilis. I had a syphilis test. Really? Yeah, because syphilis can cause dementia. They have to eliminate brain tumors. In some instances, like with me, they did a spinal tap because I have a long family history of dementia that has been thought to be thought to be Alzheimer's. I was tested. Did I carry the Alzheimer's gene? In fact, I do carry the Alzheimer's gene. But they also, in a spinal tap, they can read your spinal fluid and they can see whether you're carrying the certain kinds of proteins that is indicative of Alzheimer's. They do an MRI and they try to read not just the visual images, but the numbers associated with your MRI. And so they put all that together along with a neuropsych exam. Some of you maybe had that. It's about 4 hours of testing. And they put all that together, and the team comes together and says, this is what we think is going on. We can't absolutely be certain, but this is the working hypothesis. And so, dementia, while it mainly affects older people, it is not normal aging. I have a 92-year-old father-in-law who is sharp as a tack, and he's not going to die with dementia. And although it mainly affects older people, and the statistics are, pretty frightening. 1 in 4 over the age of 80, and 1 in 10 over the age of 65. It can happen to much younger adults. And as I said, FTD strikes adults in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. According to the World Health Organization, some 50 million people around the globe have dementia. And that's going to increase with us baby boomers, right? How many of you are baby boomers in this room? You know what? We were the largest group in school and the workforce, and we're going to be in the world of dementia. Isn't that fun? It's going to increase to 130 million by the year 2050. At present, it's the 7th leading cause of death in the world, and I think without a doubt, it's the leading reason for disability and dependence and sometimes financial ruin among the elderly. Dementia does not discriminate. It doesn't care about your race, your gender, your creed, your income, your education, or even your sexual identity. But access to quality care does. And frankly, I worry as boomers start to age and dementia begins to grow at a rapid pace, this disease or condition could bankrupt Medicaid or Medicare. And I'm really worried that in this political climate, we're going to start warehousing those who don't have family support systems and can't take care of themselves and can't afford assisted living. Like many others living with dementia, every day is a struggle. And while I might not show it, and some of you are probably thinking, she didn't have dementia. In the words of Christine Bryden, a remarkable woman living with FTD from Australia, did you get to meet her? Oh. She's the author of a really helpful book called Dancing with Dementia. And she writes, and I feel most days like a swan, gliding gracefully above the water and paddling frantically beneath the water to stay afloat. One of my symptoms is primary progressive aphasia, and that's the loss of language. So it is getting harder for me to speak. But on the other hand, once I figure out what I want to say slowly, and with the help of, Google Dictionary and spell check, and once I write it down, I can deliver my message with relative ease and confidence. It took me about 20 hours to write the sermon you just heard me preach. I can't do it quickly anymore. But as Emily likes to say, one day I can preach a kick-ass sermon, and the next day I can't put 2 sentences together. Everything we do, I'm learning, is really a 3-step process. We have to decide what to do or say, how to do it, and then we have to do it. And for most adults, we believe that we can do several things at once, like, drive, listen to the radio, have a conversation, admire the view, talk on the phone, and follow directions. But brain scientists will tell you that there's really no such thing as multitasking. It's just we do everything really fast. And people with dementia can only do one thing at a time. And that becomes increasingly difficult as we desperately try to recall and execute the depths of the dance with as much grace as possible. So today, when Liz handed me the hymnal and said, "Do you want the hymnal as we walk out?" I can no longer process down the aisle, look at the hymnal, and sing a hymn at the same time. Now, that's unheard of for somebody who's been a cathedral dean for the last 20 years. But I can't do all 3 of those things anymore. And so what happens is, like many people with dementia, I become very tentative and anxious, afraid that I'm going to forget something important, not recognize somebody I know, or get overwhelmed by my disease. One of the things I'm learning is that anxiety is an undercurrent of dementia. And those of us who live with dementia, especially in the early to mid stages, when we know that something's wrong, when we know we're not the way we used to be, we live on the edge of panic. But by having an early diagnosis, I've had the ability to develop some strategies with Emily, with a speech therapist, with my doctor, with the AFTD Facebook support group, with friends and colleagues. I've been able to develop strategies to cope with the challenges. For instance, I curtail the number of activities and conversations during the day. I've organized my closet so that I only see a limited number of items and they all go together. And still I might have to change my clothes 3 times in the morning because even though I have a row of, I've traded black shirts for white shirts, I still can't decide which white shirt to wear. And when I was the keynoter at the AFTD Gala, which by the way was an event of the media community, the fashion industry, and their private bankers, because the chair was the Grand Poobah of Condé Nast and Allied newspapers, and the co-chair was the Devil Wears Prada herself, the former editor of Vogue magazine. And I carefully, for this event, picked out my outfit, and we went to New York, and I carefully laid everything out on the bed that afternoon, and I carefully got dressed. And it wasn't until I got home and back to our hotel room realizing that I had forgotten to put on half of my outfit. Ooh. Now, fortunately, I had my pants on, I had my jacket on, and I was wearing shoes, but I forgot about all of the accessories that I so carefully laid out. That's dementia at work. That's not just normal aging. When we go out to a restaurant, we try to look at the menu in advance so I can slowly decide what to eat by process of deciding what I don't want to eat. Last week, we closed on a house in a new neighborhood, an old neighborhood that is really quiet, and it's near family and friends and physicians. I want to share with you, do I have a little bit more time? You tell me when to stop, okay, and take questions. I want to share with you just a couple of the lessons I've learned. One of the big ones is what I shared in this sermon about losing your life and finding it anew. And that's a truth for all of us. Mine was through dementia. You might be losing your job, or retiring, or losing a spouse, or getting a divorce, or becoming an empty nester. But that's probably the biggest lesson that I've learned in all of this, is there's life on the other side of this diagnosis. There's life on the other side of everything bad that happens to us. Another lesson I've learned, I call it no longer the captain. There's an ancient proverb that Jesus borrows, and he shares it with Peter at the end of John's Gospel about the young being able to dress themselves and go where they choose, while the old require support and need someone to lead them, perhaps taking them to places they do not wish to go. One of the realities of dementia is your world gets smaller. Your realm of decision-making and responsibility shrinks, and it becomes more confined. So while I'm still able to manage most aspects of daily living, I can't lead an organization anymore. While I'm still able to drive, we have given up a car, and I'm not driving very much. And there will come a time when I give up that source of independence. But I want to do it on my terms. I don't want someone else to take away my driving privileges. I don't want to have that accident and the insurance company say, you can't drive anymore. And while I want to stay home for as long as possible, and we're doing everything in our power to make that possible, there might come a time where I need a level of care where I'm too isolated and lonely, because that happens with dementia, especially when you can't talk anymore, or when I might become a burden on my beloved, that I will move into assisted living. However, on the flip side of that, as hard as it is to no longer be in charge and in control, there's also a newfound freedom of not being in charge and of celebrating others as they lead. And that's something us baby boomers are going to have to figure out, is how to step aside for the next generation to lead. I just heard from the president of the House of Deputies of the Episcopal Church that all of the members of the State of the Church Committee are under 45. And there are a whole bunch of people that are really upset that they were like, why am I not appointed to this? And the president of the House of Deputies says, because you need to learn to step aside and let the next generation lead. Now, speaking of places you don't want to go, this is my opportunity to do the advertisement. I assume you've done your advance directives. All of you are responsible people, and all of your advance directives are in order. I'm not going to ask for a sign of hands. Let me suggest to you, if you haven't done them, you really need to. And if you have done them, it's really important to take a look at them and make sure that they are explicit and specific as you want them to be, especially if you are no longer able to communicate your wishes. And finally, it's really important to share those advance directives with your doctor, with your spouse, with your best friend, with your children, and I advise you, when you share it with your children, to get all of them in the room at one time and say, these are my wishes, and with your church. And when you do your advance directives, I encourage you to also make a playlist of your life. The music you like, the food you like, the television shows you like, the flowers you like, the clothes you like to wear. What is your daily routine that you enjoy, so that if you end up unable to communicate your wishes and unable to manage your own life, the people responsible for your care will know what's important to you and will not impose on you that which is important to them. My mother did not like Fox News. She liked NPR and CNN. But the caregivers liked Fox News. And she wasn't able to talk because she had aphasia. And I had to say to her caregivers, this is not what my mother wants, so please, no more Fox News or soap operas. My mother did not like getting up in the morning, but her caregivers got her up at 6 o'clock because that's when they got to her room. You got to be specific, my friends. Another one of my lessons, I call it the way of the child. Do you remember that 1980s movie regarding Henry, starring Harrison Ford? It was about a New York lawyer who gets shot in the head, and it brings his career to a screeching halt and leaves him with both brain damage and the spirit of a child. And that's how I feel most days. I'm in this aging adult body with a brain that is damaged and a spirit that is becoming younger so that I see life through the eyes of a child. Like, I ride my bike with new enthusiasm. And sometimes I pretend like I'm on a horse. And I say, when I can't drive, I'll ride a bike. When I can't ride a two-wheel bike, I'm going to ride a three-wheel bike. And I'm going to be that cool, crazy old lady riding down the street in my three-wheel bike. I explore tidal basins and look at art not like a critic anymore, but with the curiosity of a kid. I laugh at silly bathroom jokes. I cry at the drop of a dime. I travel with a teddy bear for when I get scared. He's in my knapsack. And there are moments when I reach for Emily's hand or she takes mine, not like that of a lover or of a spouse of the past 20 years, but like a child with her parent. Jesus once said, truly I tell you, unless you become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. I'm beginning to wonder, has dementia provided me with a shortcut? Bobby McFerrin in 1988 wrote that #1 hit entitled, Don't Worry, Be Happy. He sings, in every life we have some trouble. When you worry, you make it double. Maybe that's why Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to bring worries of its own. You see, I'm discovering that since I can't return to the past, and since I can't predict or control the future, and some of the future might not be something I want to think about, I have to live in the here and the now. And so does Emily. We're trying to turn our journey of dementia into a pilgrimage. I like to call it my own elder hostel. Many days, though, we feel like strangers in a strange land, and when we walk the Camino de Santiago 9 years ago, we learned that everybody walks at their own pace and experiences it differently. And this is good training for a life with dementia, because dementia is so varied that they say when you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. And so as we walk the new Camino, we're trying to follow the advice of Rumi: wherever you stand, be the soul of that place. Seek the good, seek the joy. Somebody earlier mentioned to me mindfulness. I don't know who it was, but somebody here said how important mindfulness has become to them. Well, as a pastor, I've always taught that the cultivation of mindful awareness is really essential for human well-being. I'm now learning that it's not only essential, it's an absolute, because it helps manage the anxiety. And neuroscientists are starting to learn that mindfulness practices can actually change your brain. Here's how I look at it. Dementia is a complicated condition that is influenced by a number of factors that I think fall into three basic categories. One is genetics, two is environment, and three is lifestyle. While I can't control my DNA, and I have a strong family legacy of dementia, I told you I have that Alzheimer's gene. I can't do anything about that. That's out of my control. And I can't control the environmental pollutants to which I have been exposed over the course of my lifetime. Some of you are old enough to remember when the DDT trucks came through our neighborhoods. Do you remember that when we were kids? They come in the summer and they blow out those big clouds of smoke to kill the mosquitoes. Well, I and my friends used to ride our bikes behind them. We would hold our breath, and we had a game to see who could hold their breath the longest. And then when you could no longer hold your breath, you went, and you just took it all in. Oh, my mother didn't know I was doing that. Who knows what damage that has done? Or the fact that I've worked in industrial cities and brownfields for so many years. I had some blood testing done, and they determined I had toxic levels of arsenic, lead, and mercury in my system. I can't do anything about that past. Nor can I go back in time and change my previous eating, exercise, sleep, or work habits. However, I can and I have changed how I now live and care for myself. And who knows what the impact of those changes will have on the progress of my disease. Only time will tell. But you know what? I don't have anything to lose by trying. And it's early enough that I'm still able to try. Too many people with dementia just give up and think, I can't do anything. And unfortunately, this attitude is reinforced by a world that approaches it from a deficit perspective, noting all that is lost, calling it the long goodbye, right? I've witnessed in so many people living with dementia. And as I now see in my own life, there are amazing opportunities to be had if we're willing and allowed to claim them. So I'm looking at life from an asset perspective. There are lots of activities deep inside of me that I think I'm going to be able to do, perhaps with modification, for some time to come, because they're well practiced. They're second nature. They draw among my innate gifts. I can still preach. I think it's pretty good, actually. But I wouldn't dare get up and try to preach without a text now. And when I can't do these things, I'll stop trying and I'll do others. So when you're dealing with someone who has dementia, it's really important to take a realistic but positive approach, to encourage their gifts and their strengths, to acknowledge their challenges, and maybe help them explore new gifts and activities along the way. Remember what St. Paul said to the church in Corinth. We hear it all the time. There are many gifts and many activities, but it's the same Spirit of the same God. Live into that one. People often say to me, Tracy, you don't seem like you have dementia. But what does that mean? That means that dementia is somebody wandering around a memory unit, or should be, with with cookie crumbs on her shirt, wearing adult diapers, politely called Depends, holding a stuffed animal, staring into space, and maybe babbling or moaning or doing something outrageous. And that's not me. And that's not the other folks I've met over these past year who are in the early to mid stages. And some days I feel like my old self and I question the diagnosis. But then something will happen, like getting disoriented at a crowded party, or frightened in an airport, or startled on a sidewalk, or struggling to find words or make sentences, or forgetting to brush my teeth or take a shower, or having an outburst in public, or being overwhelmed by choices and decisions. And those moments remind me that yes, I really do have it. I've learned that denial is a very common challenge, especially for those of us with early onset. And because it's such a devastating diagnosis, and because we are good except when we're not, we have good days and we have bad days, friends and strangers want to comfort us by saying, oh, we all forget where we put our keys, or we all forget our best friend's last name. So I want to share with you how important it is and how to not deny somebody else's truth and to say it's an idle tale. I think this is one of the most difficult parts of coping with this illness, because it can lead to a very unhealthy cycle of denial, shame, and blame. The last thing I want to share with you is the issue of loneliness. As dementia runs its course, individuals do end up more and more isolated. They cross to the other side of life as we've all known it. That, for me, is the most frightening of all prospects. I don't worry about being forgotten by God, but I do worry about being forgotten by my friends, by my world. And so I'm lining up a small circle of friends who promise to visit me, to be with me when I can't go out, and even when I can't talk. Because, you see, welcome and inclusion and hospitality and kindness become really incredibly important to us. And when we can't go to the community needs to come to us, including, and maybe most especially, our church communities. So my hunch is, based on preaching here this morning, you got a lot of folks over the age of 65 in this congregation. And while we're all working really hard on attracting our millennials, our future, we really need to be paying attention to our elders and making sure that they don't cross to the other side and they don't fall out of sight and out of mind. There are some wonderful new ministries that are starting to care for those living with dementia. And I hope that your congregation might consider it. I hope that I'll come back to the Diocese of Pennsylvania and do a clergy conference, or maybe meet with some of you to talk about these kinds of ministries. But for now, I want to stop and say simply this, that one of the common challenges for people living with dementia is that we lose the ability to tell our stories and to advocate on our own behalf. And that's why, for as long as I'm able, I'm determined to tell my story of dementia from the inside out. So thank you for listening. Thank you for the invitation. Thanks, Merrick, wherever you are. And I'm happy to entertain your questions for as long as you want to ask them. Thank you. So we do have time for a few questions. Yes, ma'am, or comments.
Yes. I've cared for many people with different forms of dementia over the years, and I just have a helpful suggestion for you.
Not a speaker.
Okay.
That's a portable.
Yeah, what's your helpful suggestion?
No zippers. After a while, zippers. You're fine.
That's a great idea. For when I can't put a zipper up, I won't use zippers.
Yeah, elastic waistbands is the way to go.
They are, and when that time comes, thank you, I will wear an elastic waistband. But there's a good example. To be honest with you, I want to look good till the end.
There you go.
Here.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts? I don't want to keep you too long, but yes, ma'am.
Not a question,
Thank you. It's great to be here. And it was because of the Dean of the American Cathedral in Paris, who I think has preached here, and the Bishop of Europe, that all of this started, because on Easter Day at lunch, the bishop said, well, what do you want to do with the rest of your ministry? I said, what ministry? It's over. And he said, oh, no, it's not over. What do you want to do? And then Lucinda extended the invitation, as did he. So, yes, ma'am.
My husband is just 95 in October, member of this parish, and we're up at Orton. Stephen Hartman is up the road, a medical facility and a retirement. And Howard, my husband, is in the another wing because he has it. But I feel like we are blessed because he got up so much later. I mean, like he just had his 95th birthday. So he didn't have it, and he worked. He was a CPA. He worked in his 80s. He had private clients. I mean, he had his mind. Everybody here knows him that's old enough. And he was a county warden at our previous church for 40 years. We were over there at Huntington Valley, and now we're here for since 9/11.
Well, he was.
So here we are, as old as we are. And he's down in the medical, and I go down to see him, and he still is. I mean, we enjoy each other.
That's great.
He just doesn't have his memories.
Well, that's great.
We love each other, and it's just nice to go visit him.
And I think there is some memory loss that comes from living to be really old. I mean, I don't want to deny that. I mean, just like every other part of our every other part of us starts to wear out. I mean, I do think when you get in your high 90s, some of your brain is starting to wear out too. So yes, he is blessed. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
A comment. My mom had dementia, and as it progressed, she became unable to communicate, and it was a loss. The verbal skill is something that we all have. But what you said about there's life after death, there's something reborn after something dies. There was in our relationship, just the ability to be present with her was profound and meaningful, and I've carried it with me. So if you're visiting a person who has dementia, if you're living with somebody who's lost the verbal skills, don't underestimate the value of presence. It's powerful, and I think it's God's Spirit.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate what you say. I think a lot about what the ministry of being with people with dementia is the ministry of presence and patience. Patience and presence, which means redefining time and redefining productivity. It's a great and important lesson for clergy to learn, as we often rush through those pastoral visits and with people who can't rush with us anymore. So thank you. Yes, you had a comment.
I've been working with people in nursing home settings for over 10 years. So I have a question for you, because I used to understand, I came from a background where being a child of God was hinged largely on your ability to profess your statement of faith and to cling to certain beliefs. And I'm wondering, how has this journey impacted your theology of what it is to be a child of God?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Thank you. I'll try to be brief in my answer. It's what I've been writing about and thinking about for 2 years now. The short answer is, I think I feel more connected and closer to God with each and every passing day, and words matter less and less. I don't think God gives a hoot whether I can profess the words of the Nicene Creed. And quite frankly, this is another subject for a different adult education topic, but I think God might not like the words of the Nicene Creed. Yeah, you know what? It doesn't matter anymore. I'm not going to ask for your stewardship pledge. Truthfully, I mean, for me, God has become very big, very intimate right now. And I am convinced that in God I live and move and have my being, and nothing will separate me from the love of God, come hell or high water or absolute silence. I worry more about the human beings in my realm. John Swinton, who is a British theologian, has written a brilliant book about that very subject. So thank you for asking that question. And do have an adult forum on the creed and bring Jim Carroll here to speak. Any other closing questions? I don't want to overstay my welcome. I saw another hand though. Okay, maybe they left. They will receive a contribution from this parish, and if you know anybody who needs their support, they are right in your backyard. So thank you again.